Hello friends, nowadays full stack development is very much in demand and everyone is asking what should I learn for UI development, React or Angular? The answer is none of them. First learn JavaScript. You do not have to be very good in it, but yes, basic foundation knowledge of JavaScript is very necessary. If you are from some backend programming background like C Sharp, Java, Python, then it is going to be very easy for you. Same for each arrays, list, classes, objects, okay? And if you are new to programming, then this should be your first language to learn. The reason is simple. JavaScript is the most popular language in the world and we use JavaScript in 90% of the web development project. And in every developer resume, JavaScript should be there. So in this mini course, I am going to cover top 25 interview questions in JavaScript. In first chapter, we will explore the questions on basics of JavaScript. These are like short answer questions, so it will not take much time, okay? Then in the second chapter, we will have questions from function and its types. I think it is the most important part of the JavaScript. And then in the third chapter, we will cover some advanced questions like promises, classes, and objects in JavaScript. As you can see, the questions are here in the sequential manner, sequential learning, so that you can learn step by step, okay? Now, here is one very important point. Why I am able to complete so many questions in so less time here? Because mostly I used screenshots to explain the code and the output. I only focused on clearing and explaining the concepts. If you have any confusion, then type this code in between the script tags of your HTML file. You will get the result and that is the right way to learn the things, right? Alright, so let's start with the first question of the first chapter. Hey, my name is Happy and I help candidates in cracking technical interviews. What is JavaScript? Let's explore. Here are our browsers which we use to access websites as a user. Now our browsers understand only HTML, JS and CSS, nothing else. HTML and CSS are purely for displaying the data. They just display static content, nothing else. Now as a user, when you will click on some button or take some action on web page, then it is JavaScript which is making the website interactive and dynamic. How the web page understand JavaScript? Because every browser have JavaScript engine in it which process JavaScript code. Like V8 JavaScript engine is there inside the Chrome browser, Spider Monkeys for Firefox, JavaScript Core for Safari and Chakra for Edge. So what is JavaScript? JavaScript is a programming language that is used for converting static web pages to interactive and dynamic web pages. That's the answer. What are data types in JavaScript? What are primitive data types? For example, here we are assigning a number value to a variable, right? So JavaScript will automatically identify by looking at the value that the data type of this age property is number, okay? The definition is a data type determines the type of the values that can be stored in a variable. Now these are the types of the data types which are divided into two categories, primitive and non-primitive. What are primitive data types? Here is the list of code for all primitive data types, okay? Number, string, boolean, undefined, all are primitive data types. Basically, primitive are simple types and it means once you assign a value to a variable, then it will never ever change. For example, here you assigned 25 to this age variable, okay? So in the memory, your 25 value is stored and assigned to this age variable. This memory is managed by the JavaScript engine, which by default comes with the browser, right? You know. Now, when you assign another value 30 to the age variable, then a 30 will be stored at a new location in the memory, and that location will be assigned to the age variable now, okay? So basically, we are not modifying the value of first location and converting it from 25 to 30, but we are creating a new value here in case of all primitive data types. So the conclusion about the primitive data type is, primitive data types are immutable, which means that their values cannot be changed or modified once they are created. And another important point about primitive data type is they can hold only single value. You can see all of these primitive data types here are holding only and only single value, right? That is the answer of this question. What is the difference between primitive and non-primitive data types? Let's see the difference between these two categories of data types. Then you can use them in a better way, okay? First obvious difference is number, string, boolean, undefined, null. All these are primitive data types. They are in one category. Similarly, object, array, function, date, regular expression are non-primitive data types. They both are fundamentally different categories. Here you can see one object which is the type of non-primitive data type, okay? Now the first fundamental difference between them is primitive data type can hold only single value. But non-primitive data types can hold multiple values and methods. We know a number string can hold only one value, right? But if you see this object here, which is non-primitive data type, then see it is holding multiple values, name, age, etc, etc. And it can also hold an array, even a method like this. So this is the ability of non-primitive data types, okay? Next difference is primitive data types are immutable, meaning their values once assigned cannot be changed. But non-primitive data types are mutable and their values can be changed. For example, if you update the name property of this person object here, then in the memory, the value of this name will be updated and modified. No new memory place will be created for new value, okay? But I already explained in previous question how you create new memory space when you assign a new value to same variable in case of primitive data types, right? Next difference is primitive data types are simple data types, but non-primitive data types are complex data types. Why we call them complex? Because they are more flexible as comparison to primitive. Flexible in sense they can accept multiple values, their values can be changed, so you can do multiple things with the non-primitive data types. For example, in real world, TV is a simple thing because TV you can watch only, right? But computer is a complex thing because computer you can watch, browse, play games. So it provides you more flexibility, right? So that is the difference between primitive data types and the non-primitive data types. What are arrays, function and objects? Alright, here we are going to see the three main data types of non-primitive types. First one is array. See, here is the way you can assign a array to a variable. What is array? Simple. An array is used to store a collection of values such as a list of numbers or list of names, list of something, right? Like here we are using this animals array to store the names of the animals, right? Now like this, with the help of this index, we can access any item or element of this array. Array index starts from 0, then 1, 2, 3. So here we passed index as 1, so the output will be cat. Next thing about array is length, which is the count of the total number of elements in the array. Here we have 2 count, right? Next important thing is you can add the new elements inside the array with the help of this push method like this. And if we print the final animal list, then after pushing you can see here we have now 3 animals, right? So this is all about array. Next important non-primitive data type is function. Here is a very simple function add, which is accepting 2 values as parameter and then returning the addition of the 2. Very simple, right? I think you already know that if we execute this function, then we will get the value 5 here. Simple. The definition is a function is a block of code that performs a specific task or returns a value. So a function may or may not return a value. Okay. Third important non-primitive data type is object. Here is the example of object person. You can see we can assign multiple values to a single object person here like this. These thing we call properties. Even we can assign an array to the property of object, and even we can assign the function also. So this is the beauty of the object. Now this is the way to access the normal properties of object by passing the property name. For array properties, we have to pass the property name and the index also like this. And we can directly call the function of the object like this. So finally, the definition of the object is An object is a non-primitive data type which can hold multiple values or a combination of values and function. That's it. What is scope in JavaScript? If you see this code of my function here, inside the function we defined one let variable and assigned a value to it and then print it in the console. Everything is fine until here. But when we try to access this let variable a outside this function body like this, then it will give the error. This is local scope. Local scope means variable declared inside a function have local scope, which means they can only be accessed within the function, not outside. Now in second case, we define the variable outside the function and inside we printed first, manipulated it, fine, then outside again we logged it, okay, and it will log fine also because of the global scope. In global scope, variable declared outside any function have global scope, which means they can be accessed from anywhere within the function or program. So that is the global scope. That's the answer of this question. What is the difference between var, let and const in JavaScript? Alright, to show the comparison, I will show the code side by side. Let's first see the code example of var keyword. Here we have one function example and inside it we have an if condition which is always true. Inside this we are using the var keyword to assign the count to a number value 10. When we print the count inside the if block, the output will be 10, which is expected, okay. But when we will print the count outside the if block, even there it will print 10 out as output like this. The reason is var creates a function scoped variable. Even though you define the var variable inside the if block, still it is available outside the if block because it is function scoped, not blocked scoped, okay. If is a block, but this var is available to whole function, okay. Then another way of defining the variable is let keyword. Here is the same code, just I replaced this let keyword with this var keyword with the let keyword here. This let variable will work inside the if block only. But if you will try to use this variable outside the if block, then you will get the count is not defined error, okay? Because let creates a block scoped variable. Therefore, the variable will be available inside the same block only and not the outside. So that is the difference between them. Mostly we prefer let keyword only because it is what mostly everyone preferred because it is more logical, right? Next one is const keyword, which purpose is slightly different. Here in the code you can see we assigned the value const z is equal to 10 and then we are trying to assign a new value to z, then it is throwing the error. The reason is const can be assigned only once and its value cannot be changed afterwards. Alright, I hope now you know the differences between all these three keywords. What is loop? What are the types of loops in JavaScript? Now let's quickly see loop as a diagram. See, when loop starts, there must be a condition then. And if the condition is true, then code inside the loop will execute and counter will be updated. Again, if the condition is true, then again code inside loop will be executed. Like this is a iteration process again and again and again. That's why we call it loop, right? But once the condition is false, then the execution will exit from this loop and program will stop. Simple, right? Definition is a loop is a programming way to run a set of instructions or you can say code repeatedly until a certain condition is met. In JavaScript, we have 5 types of loops: for loop, while loop, do while, for of, and for-in. What is the difference between for, while, and do while loops? First, let's see the for loop code. In one single line, we are defining the initial value of the variable, then setting the condition also, and then incrementing the counter also, all in one single line, right? And inside, we are just printing, logging the value, and here is the output. So what is for loop? For loop allows to iterate a block of code a specific number of times, okay? A specific number because you must set the increment here or you must set the initial value of the number also. So now if we will see the while loop, here defining the initial value of a variable, then setting the condition and condition with while keyword here, and then incrementing the counter at the end inside the loop. So all is happening in different lines, right? But here in the while loop, if you do not have initial value and you do not have the increment and only you have the condition only, then for you while loop is a better, like then you should use while loop. So the definition is while loop execute a block of code while a certain condition is true. It's depend on the condition only. In real application, if you have the initial value condition and you have to increment the value, then you have to better use the for loop. But if you just have the condition only, then you should use while loop, right? And the last one is do while loop. It is almost similar to the while loop. Only one difference is if this is the code of do while and you can see value of k is equal to 0, but our condition is if k is greater than 1, which means our this condition is false because k is 0, and if it is while loop then it will not execute. But for the case of do while loop, it will definitely execute the first time only, and we will get inside the loop and the output will be logged like this. But from second time onwards, it will execute as per the condition like while only. So the definition is the do while loop is similar to the while loop, except the block of code is execute at least once, even if the condition is false. So that is the comparison between these three loops. What is the difference between for of and for in loop? For of loop is simple version, and here you can see the code. We have an array of values like this, and then we use for of loop to iterate through these arrays of values like this, and here is the simple output. So the definition is the for of loop is used to loop through the values of an object like arrays, strings, okay. Now if you see the for in loop code, here we have this object person with properties like name, age, role with their values, right? It's like a key value pair, right? So to iterate these key value pair, these properties, we need for in loop. So here we will create all properties inside the it's iterate all properties inside the person object, okay. Now another difference is for of loop allows you to access each value directly without having to use an index, whereas for in loop allows you to iterate over the keys of an object and access the values associated with those keys, those properties, okay. Now you know for arrays you have to use for of loop in real application, and for things like objects you should prefer a for in loop, which is like used to tackle more complex objects. What is for each method? Compare it with for of and for in loop. So for each is a method which is able to do both the things actually, which for of and for in can do, that both the things you can do by for each also. For example, if this is the array, then this is the for of loop to iterate it, right? The same array can be iterated using the for each loop like this also, and we will get the same output. Here what we are doing, here array dot for each method will accept a function as a parameter, which will get all the items or elements of array one by one as the parameter here, and therefore logging one by one these values. So this is slightly more convenient and it is good for performance also, because we do not have to declare one extra variable like item like we were doing it with the for loop here. The item here is the parameter, not the variable, okay. So next next one is comparison with the for in loop. Here you can see one person object. Here is the for in loop to iterate the properties with the help of the key value pair, right? But the same can be achieved with the help of the for each method like this. All the values of object person will be iterated using the for each method, and hence all the values will be printed like this. If we will replace this object dot values with the object dot keys, then all the keys will be printed, logged, okay, got it? So for each is a more modern way to iterate through any list, okay. Whether the list is an array or object, that doesn't matter. So finally, the definition of the for each method is: for each is a method available on arrays or objects that allows you to iterate over each element of the array and perform some action on each element. That's it. I hope it is clear to you. What is the difference between double equal to and triple equal to in JavaScript? As always, let's see the code example first. See, here we have two variables x and y. X is the number and y is the string. Now, if I will use double equal to operator, then this will evaluate this to be true and this will be the output. So you noted here, double equal to operator comparing irrespective of the data types. It doesn't matter whatever is the data type, okay? That means double equal to operator performs type coercion, okay, and converts the string to the number and then compare. Now if we will use the triple equal to for comparison, and then this will be the false. Now the reason is triple equal to does not perform any type coercion and only set to true if value and types both are same. So here this not double equal to will be true because the types of x and y are not same. Mostly we use triple equal to because we do not want to values from different data types to be equal, right? That is not logical. So that is the answer of this question. Alright, congrats for completing the first chapter of this mini course which had the basic fundamental question. Now in this chapter we will cover questions about all the types of functions in JavaScript. Anonymous functions, arrow function, callback function, high order function. Yes, they are very important to understand. And yes, if you are new to JavaScript, then do not forget to try this code in simple HTML files. Just place the code in between the script tags of body or head of the HTML and see the magic then. So without wasting time, let's start with the first question. What are the types of functions in JavaScript? Alright, so yes, we have 7 types of functions in JavaScript. Named function, anonymous, function expression, arrow function, IIFE, callback function, and higher order functions. So these are the 7 types of function. We will cover all the types of the functions in separate question. In this question, I will explore the first 2 as they are the simplest one, okay? So this is the functional declaration, or we call the named function also this type of function. Because we assign a name sum to this function like this. We are calling the function with function name directly inside the and then inside the console.log right here. So it is the simplest one, no explanation required, right? The second type of the function is anonymous function. You can see the code here, how inside the console.log there is the function body, but there is no name assigned to it. Anonymous function means, anonymous means what? No name, right? Therefore, function with no name is called anonymous functions. And you will be using anonymous functions at many places in your JavaScript applications. Wherever you see function keyword and then bracket start without any name before that, that means you are using the anonymous functions, okay? So that is the answer of this question. What is function expression in JavaScript? If you see this code example here, we are assigning the anonymous function to a variable add, right? And then we are using the variable in console.log to call the above anonymous function. This is nothing but function expression. The definition is simple. A function expression is a way to define a function in JavaScript by assigning it to a variable. Now, instead of anonymous function, we can also use the named function also to create the function expression like this. Again, the named function is assigned to a variable and then we call the function with the variable name and passing parameters. This is the second case, but we rarely used named function with function expression. Mostly we use the anonymous function only with function expression, okay? Because we are getting the result of the function in a variable. Because there is no use of in if you see this named function, then there is no use of this some method name. Okay, so why should we should put it? So that's the reason why we mostly use anonymous function expressions only. That's the answer of this question. What are arrow functions in JavaScript? I think this is one of the most important function in JavaScript. If you see this, it is a normal traditional named function, right? This is just a 4 to 5 lines of code. Now by using the arrow function, we can do the same thing in just 2 lines of code like this. Now listen carefully. This add is the arrow function which is accepting two parameters x and y inside the brackets. The same parameter as you were getting in the normal named functions. Okay, these are nothing else but parameters. Then after this arrow operator, you will write the logic like whatever the code lines of code you will write. Okay, in this one line of code, arrow operator will implicitly take care of returning the result without writing the return keyword. So if it says one line code, then you are returning something, then you need not to write the return like you were doing in this named function. Now if you will put x plus y, this statement inside some curly braces, or you have the multiple statements, then you have to write the return statement. Okay, so finally the definition of the arrow function is: arrow functions, also known as fat arrow functions, are a concise and short syntax for defining functions in JavaScript. That's the answer of this question. What are callback functions? These callback functions are very important and used everywhere in the JavaScript. So let's explore them. Here you can see we have a simple normal function add. Now we can call this add function by passing two parameters and then get the result in result variable, right? Here name of the parameters a and b are not necessarily same as the name method actual parameters. Okay, now we want to put this console.log inside some function to make this program as a good structured program, right? Because this is right now scattered. So what we will do for that, we will first call one method display, which will accept two parameters values, and third parameter, this is as the method name. Add is our method name, which is passed as an argument in the method another function, right? Display. So this add is the callback method which is passed as an argument. The definition of the callback function is: a callback function is a function that is passed as an argument in another function. Now here is the body of the display method which accept x and y, and operation, which is a callback function, the parameter. Okay, so remember here operation is the callback function and display is the higher order function, which I will explain in upcoming question in detail. So inside the display function, then we can call the operation function, which is like add right now. Then result will get the sum of the x and y, and that will store in result variable, and finally log the value. Here is the output 8. The question is, what is the advantage here? Okay, why we use the callback and the higher order function? Why can't we just do all these one single normal function can also do is do this simple thing, right? The reason is, one function add is fine, but suppose you have multiple functions like multiply, subtract, divide, and many more, then this code will not look will this higher order and callback function will look more clearer and structured. But if you do the same one thing in a single function like we were doing previously here, then this will be like very untidy and unstructured and not the clear code. Okay, so that's why we use callback function at many places in our applications in JavaScript. That's the answer of this question. When to use callback functions in real applications? Callback functions can be used in many places, and here is the list. You can use callback function for iteration, event handling, asynchronous operation, higher order functions, which I already showed in the previous question, right? How to use higher order function and the callback function together. And yes, also with promises also you can use callback function. Now you know how important are callback functions, right? This simple iteration uses like this. I will show it here. Suppose we have an array like this, and we also have method which accept a number as parameter and then log the number. Simple. Now how to call this method? For that we have to just use this for each method of the array which accept callback function log number as the parameter, and log number will automatically accept one by one all the numbers of this numbers array, okay, and then log them. Simple. Whenever you see a code where method is passed as the parameter, or you can say argument in another function, that means that function is a callback function which is passed as an argument. We will also discuss the other ways of other uses of callback functions in upcoming questions. What is the use of event handling in JavaScript? Alright, suppose you are a user and you open a browser, a web page, and in the web page, whenever you click some button or do some action on web page, that what we call it event, sorry. And here is the list of top 10 events like click event, mouse over, key down event, etc, etc. Now when this event will be triggered or happened, then you can write some code to handle it as per your web application, okay, and not as an user but as a developer only you have to write the code. For example, here we have a button on our web application with id my button. Now we can get the reference of the button by using this called document.getElement by id method of JavaScript, right? Now we have the button reference with us. So after that we can call this add event listener method of this button reference. Add event listener normally takes pass like two parameters inside it. First is the event name, which is click here, and second is the logic or function which we want to perform or execute on button click, okay. In this function we are just calling this alert. Now if you can see here, we passed function as the argument of this add event listener method, right? So this is a callback function because it's a parameter argument, right? Also this function has no name, so this is also an anonymous function, okay. So don't confuse that whether it's anonymous and whether it's a callback function. It's both, right? Because it's a parameter and also it has no name. And yes, we can also pass the named callback function, like named also callback function also. So if the logic is too big, then we normally prefer named callback function to use. So this is a story about the event handling. Now let's summarize the points. Event handling is the process of responding to user actions in a web page. First point. Second point is the add event listener method of JavaScript allows to attach an event name with the function you want to perform on that event. Okay, I hope now you know what is event handling and how callback function helps in event handling. What is higher order function in JavaScript? Alright, we call a function a higher order function if it takes one or more function as arguments or it return a function as a result. So one of them will be true, then it's a higher order function. So let's focus on the first case. See, here we have function HOF which is accepting func as a parameter and then simple calling func inside it. Here HOF is the higher order function and func is the callback function because it is passed as the parameter, okay. Now this is the way we call the HOF function and pass the say hello as the parameter. I explained the use of this type of code when I explained the callback function in the previous questions, right? We can write many methods like say hello and pass them as parameters. Like it's not just a single parameter callback function. We can pass multiple methods as the parameter also in case of higher order function. So this will give you a better structure of the code. Now second type of the higher order function is where a function returns a function as a result. Here we will not use callback. See, this function create adder function is higher order function because inside it we are returning the result of this function, which is just adding the value of the numbers. And yes, this function is an anonymous function, but yes, you can name it also. So now the question is how you will use this create adder for a higher order function. What is the use? So this is a two-step process. First step is we will pass the parameter 5 in higher order function and get and store the result of the function result in this add 5 variable. So this is not just a local, it's a function variable. And as I said, higher order function return function as a result. And now this add 5 is the function result. Then we will call add 5 function and pass the value to the log, pass the value like this and log the final thing. Okay, so the output will be 7, which is basically 5 plus 2. So this function as a result is not a very like this is not high. This case of higher order function, second case, is not a very common use, like it's not used commonly, but this using callbacks with higher order function is used at many places in normal JavaScript applications. Great, and congrats for completing the second chapter. If you are here, means you are serious about learning and interviews, right? In this third chapter of this mini course, we will cover some advanced level questions on JavaScript. Not many, but some, like promises, classes, objects. So let's start with the first question of this chapter. What are asynchronous operations in JavaScript? Let me show a very simple code example after which you will know what is asynchronous operation. For example, see this piece of code where first we are logging some statement and then we are using set timeout method to log another statement. Here set timeout method has two parameters. First is the callback anonymous function and second is the time. Okay, this means this callback function will automatically execute after this period of time. Okay, so second very important thing about this set timeout method is this method is asynchronous. That means if we will write one more statement after this set timeout, then this will be the output. So what happened here first before set timeout method will execute, then at the second line this set timeout method will wait for 2000 millisecond, or you can say 2 seconds, to execute this callback function. So this function will be executed after 2 seconds, but this set timeout will not block the execution, the further execution. So again this so what will happen, it will let the execution continue, and therefore this next lines after set timeout will be logged first, and then when the 2 seconds will be completed, then inside set timeout will be also be executed. So this is the way of execution will process the thing faster in asynchronous mode because blocking is not there. Okay, so this is what is asynchronous operation. Okay, now let's summarize this. Asynchronous operation are operations that do not block the execution of the code. Set timeout is the asynchronous function which executes callback function after a specific period of time. So that is the definition of the set timeout method, which is used many places in JavaScript applications. Now, if someone will ask you where we use asynchronous operation in real applications, then these are the places where we can use asynchronous operations. First, as I already showed you, set timeout is asynchronous example. Then we have promises. Then most importantly, when we are loading data from the API, then we are using asynchronous operation. Uploading files, animations and transitions, all these we will use asynchronous operation. And why we use asynchronous programming in these operations? Because all these operations are very time taking and we do not want to block our application execution when we are calling an API or uploading files or running some animations or transition which is time taking, right? We do not want to wait the program for their completion. Okay, so that's the answer. We will explore all these operations in upcoming questions. What are promises in JavaScript? This is a very important question in JavaScript. We will first see some points about promises, and then while checking the code example, we will confirm these points. Okay, so first point is promises in JavaScript are a way to handle asynchronous operation. Second point is a promise represents a value that may not be available yet but will be available at some point in future. Okay, for example, you call one API method, then might be the data is not available yet, right? It will take some time, 3, 4, 5, 10 seconds, but it will be available in the future, right? Maybe no data, some error you will get, or some response you will get, but at least something you will get. And the last point about promises, promise can be in one of these three states: pending, resolved, and rejected. Now let's first see the sample promise prototype. See, here we are creating the promise with the help of this promise constructor and assigning the result to this variable. Okay, Inside the promise constructor, in short, we are doing three steps. First, performing a synchronous operation. Then, if the operation is successful, then we are calling the resolve callback, which is passed as the parameter. So basically, if we will get the result, positive result from a synchronous operation, then we are marking it as successful and resolve will handle it. Okay. And if the operation is failed, then this is the last step. We will call the reject callback function. So this resolve and reject are the callback functions. And these are the three total steps, like high level steps. That's it. Okay. That's the answer of this question. In next question, I will show how to actually implement the real example in the promises. How to implement promises in JavaScript. In this question, I will quickly show you the simple implementation of a promise example. For example, here we are creating the promise and assigning the result of the to the my promise constant. Okay. Now, instead of getting the result in this constant, you can also enclose this promise in a function. Okay. So that is another way. Okay. Remember, you do not have to write the body of this resolve and reject callback functions. Okay. You will get them as the part of this promise constructor only. Now, inside this, we are using this set timeout to make our operation asynchronous. Remember the first step to make the to call the asynchronous operation. Now here, after 1000 millisecond, the things inside will be executing. So first we are generating here a random number between 0 to 9, and if number generator is less than 5, we are marking it as success and call the resolve callback function like this. And if random number is greater than 5, then we considering it as a failure, and then we calling the rejector callback function like this. So in real applications also, we put API hitting. Mostly we are like hitting the API. And if we get the data successfully, then we resolve it. And in case we get the error, we reject it. So our promise is now ready to run asynchronous operation and handle success and failure cases. Now the question is, how you will log the success of this error information. So here we are not writing anything in the log, right? So for that we have to use one more method of promise, and that is the then function like this. This then function will receive the result passed by the resolve method of the promise, and then it will log it. Similarly, this catch method of the promise will receive the result passed by the reject method of the reject method, and then it will log it. So you got it. Now if I run this program, then this will be the output. Since here I used random number method, therefore sometimes value will be less than 5. Then we log the result sent by the resolve method, and sometimes the value is greater than 5, which means error. Then we log the result sent by the reject method. So every time you reload the page, sometimes it is success and sometimes it is error. That's it. This is the practical and theoretical information about promise. You can also try the same code in your HTML file just by keeping the code in between the script tags of the head or body section. Okay, if you will try it yourself, then only you are going to learn. If I will code it, then my coding speed will get better, but you will not learn then. But if you will do it, then you can learn it easily. When to use promises in real applications. So every concept in JavaScript has some real application use. Okay, I hope you remember these 3 points about promises. Now if I summarize them in one line, then promises are useful in doing asynchronous operation and handle the results when the result will be available in future. Okay, and here are the cases when you can use promises in your application: for API calls, file handling, data fetching, animation, visual effects, and event handling. For example, you can use set timeout or async. These are all the real application use of the asynchronous programming also. So you can use set timeout to do all the things in an asynchronous operation, right? But then how you will manage the result or response which these operations will give you? For managing the response only, we will use the promise. Okay, so it's like they are working together. So asynchronous operations, set timeout, promises, callback functions, all they work together. Okay, and as the name suggests, promise will not give the response, may not give the response immediately, but it will surely give you the response whether it is resolve or reject after some time. Okay, so that is the meaning of the promise. I hope you know now, you know how, what is promise, how we can implement promise, and what is the, and where are the cases where we really can use promises in our real applications. What are classes and objects in JavaScript? So normally we have simple variables like this in JavaScript, right? But for complex data types, sometimes we have to define classes like this with the help of class keyword. Okay, here car is our class. Okay, and then we can have these static properties with fixed values in car, inside car. Then we can have dynamic properties also like this, which we will receive via the parameters of the constructor of the class. Okay, I will show you later in this question only. So these are the dynamic properties, and then we can also have the methods like this in the class. Now this class is just a template, or you can say it's a blueprint. It will not do anything by itself. So the definition of the class is like class is a template for creating objects with similar properties and methods. So it means to use a class, we should create the object of the class. Okay, so and this is how we can create the object of the class and pass the parameters. These parameters will be received by the class constructor. Here it is model and year, and then the class properties will be set with the help of these parameter received. Okay, so class properties are set by this parameters. Okay, so why we call them dynamic? Because here we can pass anything at that. Like for example, this is a car class, so you are creating object like BMW, then the model will be different, the year will be different. You will create Mercedes, or model will be different. So this, it's like dynamic, that's why we call them dynamic properties. But these static property value, its value is fixed, we cannot change them, because every car must have 4 tires only. So it depends on your requirement, how, what properties you want to set as a static, what properties you want to set as dynamic. Okay, so after we can use the class my object to log the property values like this, you can even call the methods of the class from this object like this. Okay, so object is the way to use the class, otherwise your class is of no use. Okay, so the definition of the object is, objects are the instances of a class which are created using the new keyword. I hope now you have some basic idea about what is a class, what is an object in JavaScript, right? What is the purpose of this keyword in JavaScript? Now, if you remember our class code, and here it is, here we used this keyword inside the constructor. Okay, the reason for using this this keyword is, suppose you will not use this with the model at left, then model equal to model will be confusing for the program. Okay, for the compiler, which one is the parameter and which one is the class property, how the program will know and how it will decide. So to resolve this problem, we use this keyword with the this keyword with class properties. When you say this dot, it means you are pointing or referring to the properties or of the current class, car or context. Okay, so that means this dot model is the property of the class, the car class, and the model at the right side is the parameter received from the constructor. Okay, so the answer is, this refers to the current constant or context or scope in which code is being executed. In this example, scope is the car class is the scope. Okay, so as I said, current is context or scope, so car is the scope here. What is hoisting in JavaScript? For example, see this code here. Function is called first, and then we are declaring and defining the my function. So the question is, how is it possible to call the function first even before declaring it? And this should give an error, right? So, but this is possible because of hoisting in JavaScript. When you will run this code, the JavaScript engine will automatically move the methods declared to the top of the scope. So code will be rearranged and then it will be compiled. Okay, so it will work. Now, one more example is this code where a variable is declared at the end and it will also work and it will also give the proper output. Again, this is because of hoisting for variable. It will move the variable declaration to the top of the scope at the compile time. So this will work also. The definition of the hosting is something like: hosting is a JavaScript behavior where functions and variable declaration are moved to the top of their respective scopes during the compilation phase. Okay, I already I explained scope, right, in my previous questions. Now if you see this code, and this is like a query, okay, here the output will be undefined. Now what is the reason? The reason is because declaration of x will be moved to the top, but the assignment to 10 will not. So remember, declaration is hosted, not assignment. So that is the answer of this question. Congrats for completing this mini course. Let me know in the comment section if you want the practical of these questions or not, or if any extra questions you want to learn. At the end, I would like to say all the best for your career. And if you are preparing for interviews, then my only advice is keep giving interviews and never ever give up. My best wishes are with you, are always with you.